Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's update on Tropical Storm Helene. So, Tropical Storm Helene is unfortunately looking very organized this morning as it sits just east of the Yucatan Peninsula and Cancun. And taking a look at the latest update, Tropical Storm Helene has maximum sustained winds of 70 miles per hour, gusts up to 75 miles per hour, is moving to the northwest, and has a minimum central pressure of 979 millibars this morning. Taking a look at the cone for Helene, Helene will become a hurricane this afternoon, intensifying to an 80-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane with 100-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north. And then we are going to start to see rapid intensification as we go into tonight, looking at a 105-mile-per-hour Category 2 hurricane with 125-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north-northeast. As we go into 1 a.m. tonight, looking at a Category 3 major hurricane with 120-mile-per-hour winds and 150-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north as we go into 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. And Hurricane Helene is expected to make landfall east of Apalachicola and south of Tallahassee, Florida, sometime tomorrow evening as a major Category 3 hurricane. Unfortunately, wouldn't rule out a low-end Category 4 either. We're going to see Helene move across southwestern Georgia as we go into 1 a.m. Friday morning as a 75-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane, 90-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the north-northwest. We could see Helene move over the western suburbs of Atlanta as we go into Friday evening. And then as we go into Saturday morning, Helene will weaken to a tropical depression over eastern Tennessee with 35-mile-per-hour winds and 45-mile-per-hour gusts moving to the west-northwest. As we go into 1 a.m. Saturday morning, or Sunday morning rather, 25-mile-per-hour winds, 35-mile-per-hour gusts, kind of stalling over southwestern Tennessee, and then going into 1 a.m. Monday morning, 25-mile-per-hour winds, 35-mile-per-hour gusts, dissipating over southwestern Kentucky. This is likely going to result in a lot of major flooding across the Tennessee Valley, as we're going to have a dying tropical system over the Tennessee Valley. So, getting right into the key messages for Tropical Storm Helene. Helene is forecast to intensify and be near hurricane strength when it passes near the northeastern coast of the Yucatan Peninsula during the next several hours, where a hurricane warning is in effect. Helene is expected to rapidly intensify and grow in size over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. There is a danger of life-threatening storm surge along the entire west coast of the Florida Peninsula and Florida Big Bend. The highest inundation levels are expected along the coast of the Florida Big Bend. Residents in those areas should follow advice given by local officials and evacuate if told to do so. Very important right here. Damaging hurricane-force winds are expected along portions of the coast of the Florida Big Bend, where a hurricane warning is now in effect. Preparations to protect life and property should be completed by early Thursday, since tropical storm conditions are expected to begin within this area on Thursday. Tropical Storm Helene will bring heavy rainfall to portions of the western Caribbean, with potentially significant flooding across western Cuba and the northeastern Yucatan Peninsula. Considerable and potentially life-threatening flash and urban flooding is expected across portions of Florida, the Southeast, the Southern Appalachians, and the Tennessee Valley, beginning today through Friday. This includes the risk of landslides across the Southern Appalachians. Widespread minor to moderate river flooding is likely, and isolated major river flooding is possible. Lots of strong wording from the key messages here. Make sure you're really preparing for Helene across Florida, Georgia, and even into the Tennessee Valley. Taking a look next at the watches and warnings, we have a hurricane warning in effect for the northeastern Yucatan Peninsula. This includes the city of Cancun, a tropical storm warning as well in the blue area, tropical storm warnings in western Cuba, as well as hurricane watches, tropical storm warnings across most of the Florida coastline, hurricane watches in Tampa Bay, hurricane warnings for the Big Bend and the eastern panhandle, tropical storm warnings for the western panhandle, tropical storm watches for much of the Carolina and eastern Georgia coastline. Taking a look at our tropical storm probabilities, or tropical storm force wind probabilities, much of Florida and Georgia are likely to experience tropical storm force winds at least from Hurricane Helene when it comes ashore tomorrow evening, and this could extend well into Georgia all the way as far north as Atlanta, producing a lot of power outages, unfortunately. Taking a look at our rainfall accumulations from the Weather Prediction Center, looking at 1 to 2 inches of rain in the light green shaded areas, 2 to 4 inches of rain in the dark green shaded areas across most of the Tennessee Valley, 4 to 6 inches of rain in the yellow shaded areas, and then as we start going into the dark yellow and orange shaded areas, seeing as much as 6 to 12 inches of rain. This includes Atlanta, Georgia, the Western Carolinas, Eastern Alabama, portions of the Florida Panhandle, including Tallahassee. Major flooding is expected across Georgia, Western Florida, Eastern Alabama, and especially the Smoky Mountains and Southern Appalachians in the Carolinas. Please make sure you're making preparations for major flooding if you live across Georgia and the Western Carolinas, even southeastern Tennessee. And isolated areas could get up to 16 inches in the Appalachians and Smoky Mountains. Taking a look at our flooding outlook, we have a high risk of flooding across the northeast corner of Georgia, western corner of South Carolina, and southwestern North Carolina in the pink shade area for tomorrow. Large moderate risk of flooding for much of the Florida Panhandle, eastern Alabama, Georgia, the western Carolinas, and far southeastern Tennessee in the red. A slight risk of flooding across much of the southeast, and a marginal risk of flooding for an extremely large area in the dark green shade area as a result of Hurricane Helene. And taking a look at the most concerning part of Hurricane Helene, the storm surge is going to be absolutely awful with Hurricane Helene, looking at 1 to 3 feet of storm surge from Mexico Beach to Indian Pass, from the Ocklawackee River through Indian Pass, looking at major 5 to 10 feet of storm surge, 10 to 15 feet of storm surge from Ocklawackee River through Tallshassee in the purple shade area. You need to be really evacuating if you live anywhere in these red and purple shade area. 6 to 10 feet of storm surge down through Anclote River, and then we're looking at 5 to 8 feet of storm surge for Tampa Bay through middle of Longboat Key, 4 to 7 feet of storm surge through Englewood, 3 to 5 feet of storm surge down through Flamingo, 1 to 3 feet of storm surge in the Florida Keys, and 1 to 3 feet of storm surge across northeast Florida, the Georgia coastline, and the South Carolina coastline. So, a very dangerous storm surge for the Big Bend of Florida through the eastern Panhandle and even Tampa Bay. I would recommend evacuating if you live along the coastline. So Hurricane Helene is going to be a very dangerous and potentially devastating hurricane across the Florida Panhandle and even into Georgia. So make sure you're making your last-minute hurricane preparations if you live in these areas for a major hurricane. Please stay safe and have a wonderful day, my friends.